Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, AI community without borders. Wherever you are, dear AI enthusiasts around the world, welcome to the largest cross-industry global leading AI event in December. Please let me know in the chat where you are joining us from today. I'm getting quite emotional thinking that this is our last event this year. Time passed so fast again, and we are looking back to an exceptional time with ups and downs. A big thank you to all of you for your trust, your engagement and collaboration. Whenever I'm standing in front of you, my dear audience, I'm feeling full of positive energy. Thank you for being with us and being with us through this whole year. Our topic today is about the AI trajectory 2022 and beyond. And it is hard to anticipate the future. Maybe it is not even possible unless we sit around and do nothing, or we take responsibility to influence it to our best advantage. The challenges that we face today, we cannot solve alone. The solution lies in joint forces across industries, organizations, disciplines, governments, the private and public sector, continents, and societies with their various cultures. And even if we join forces, it is unlikely that we will see immediate results. We are on a longer journey where the impact of our work today will be likely perceptible mainly by the young and coming generations. That means what we do today, we do it for our children and the children of tomorrow. Also, the potentials of AI applications are not based on plug and play. It is a process with many contributing factors playing a crucial role in their undermining or underpinning success. These factors include anything from the human to technological aspects, such as skilled workforce, leadership, data accessibility and quality, infrastructure, and regulations, just to mention a few. Preparing an organization for an AI-friendly environment doesn't happen overnight. It takes failure, determination, and endurance. It also takes openness towards each other, regardless of industry, organization, culture, and society. It takes strong will, wanting to grow together on a global level rather than competing against each other. It takes a willingness to listen to each other and learn from each other, sharing experience and knowledge, and allowing information to flow from one industry to another. The last couple of years showed it clearly we are in the same boat and the water can get really rough. As we are all interconnected, if some communities, industries, and businesses don't navigate well, it can have crucial impacts on other communities, industries, and businesses. For this exact reason, we must share knowledge, experience, and information. It is not about competition. It is about survival, about share for success. We need to come together on neutral grounds where no competition applies. We at SwissCognitive provide this environment for over 5 years now, and today we facilitate the world's largest end-of-year cross-industry expert exchange joined by over 4,000 registered AI enthusiasts and over 500,000 followers on social media globally. It is our honor to have you with us, as well as our fascinating speakers sharing with you the status of AI today, where we are heading in 2022 and beyond, what challenges we are facing, and how we're going to tackle them. All that to enable AI to boost our societies, businesses, and economies worldwide. We have a packed agenda. In fact, it is so packed that we decided to extend the length of this conference about a half an hour. So I think this just shows that there is more and more to share and brainstorm about. Now we are actually almost at the end of our agenda. And normally here we're wrapping up. But before I'll do a short wrap up about the last 3.5 hours almost, we do have a great and an honorable keynote of Dr. Kai-Fu Lee. Now, due to this extensive, stressful time, he was open enough to do a speech, especially to share today with our Swiss Cognitive community. So, my dear audience, it is a pre-recorded one because we haven't found the time slot for him to come and be here live in person, or actually streamed. So first of all, thanks a lot to Kai-Fu Lee for sharing his video with us. I would like to introduce you to him for those who are not familiar with the details. Dr. Kai-Fu Lee is the chairman and CEO of Sinnovation Venture and president of Sinnovation Venture's Artificial Intelligence Institute, a lab for building AI talent and promoting AI engineering and research. Dr. Lee was the president of Google China and senior executive at Microsoft, SGI, and Apple. He has over 50 million followers on social media and is the author of 7 best-selling books, with the most recent New York Times bestseller, AI Superpowers. Dr. Lee received his bachelor degree from computer science from Columbia University, PhD from Carnegie Mellon University, as well as honorary doctorate degree from both Carnegie Mellon and the University of Hong Kong. He is the co-chair of AI Council for the World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution and fellow of the Institute of Ethical and Electronics Engineering, Times 100 in 2013, and Weird 25 Icons. Reading out only on fraction of his biography, seriously, I could not think of a better person right now to wrap up this event, or even 2021 for us. Dear audience, we are happy to share Dr. Lee's keynote recorded, dedicated to the Swiss Cognitive Global AI community. So please welcome with me, Dr. Lee's.
We've all seen headlines about AI beating people in terms of game playing, radiology, pathology, protein folding, and all kinds of challenges. So all of this is progress that's been made on a technology called deep learning. And the way deep learning works is very different from our human brains. Deep learning does not think through the hows and whys, the analytical and the deductions, but rather it takes a huge amount of data to decide for itself what the right outcome or prediction or decision should be. And the humans pose the problem and to let the AI decide. For example, we could feed in all kinds of data about someone applying for a loan and then teach AI, these are the profiles of people who returned their loan, these are the people who defaulted on the loan, and AI will deduce what aspects of their data causes the default versus properly returning the loan, and draws a very complex surface in a 1,000+ dimensional space that cuts across all the users and says people on this side are good to give loan to, those side too risky, likelihood of default. And this is the algorithm used by Facebook and Google and YouTube to show you content that targets specifically. It asks the question of all the people who've seen all these videos and whether they liked it or not, based on clicking, watching, closing window, etc. Which people liked it and which people didn't, and then ask the question further: are you the person who has these behaviors? Are you more like the set of people who liked this video or not? And it asks that for all the videos and shows you the video for which you're most likely to respond by clicking or watching. So this has the impact of, first, when you have a huge amount of data, it gets smart. And the more the data, the smarter it gets. Secondly, It mathematically optimizes over thousands of dimensions, which people cannot do. And thirdly, it reasons individualistically. So the feed that you get on TikTok is very different from the feed I would get, because we're different people, we have different behaviors. And static software written to be one size fit all could not do that individualization, which is ever so powerful. However, despite these three strengths, AI has no ability to abstract, analyze, has no common sense, and makes no real insight. It is just data in and decision out. And of course, AI has no true creativity in coming up with something that the human hasn't told it to optimize. It doesn't know why it's optimizing, how it knows how to optimize. It doesn't know why it's optimizing. It doesn't know how to change or whether to change to optimize something else. And of course, AI doesn't have self-awareness or emotions. So it is, in some sense, extremely different from the human brain. It's also highly symbiotic with the human brain, because we're good at things AI is not good at, and vice versa. And in order for this AI to work, we need massive data and very accurate labeling in a fixed domain, not infinite domain, with a lot of computation power and some AI experts. When you have these 5 elements, magic will happen, and AI will beat people's performance and dramatically outperform as more data is thrown at it. AI is not over just one industry, but it will disrupt all industries, because all industries have data, different kinds of data. For example, in wave 1, the easiest is internet data, because there's the most data on the internet, and it's directly connected to an outcome. Amazon knows whether you bought or not. YouTube knows whether you watched or not, and that becomes feedback to train the AI and essentially turn AI and data and users into a money printing machine for the internet companies. And it's no wonder that the internet companies are currently also the most powerful AI companies with the most AI scientists and engineers. For wave 2, you could ask, who else has data? Well, all the financial companies clearly have data, because they have to keep it for record keeping. And so banks, insurance companies, investment firms, so they can now use that data not just for archive purposes, but turn it into a money printing machine. So banks can use AI to determine for whom to give loans. Insurance companies can recompute premiums. And investment companies can decide what stocks to buy and which ones are likely to go up. And of course, there's a whole set of companies, governments have a lot of data, your tax data, utilities data, traffic data, car ownership data, and all that data can be turned into value. Hospitals have medical data, there's data in logistics, supply chain, there's data in the back office. Now that COVID is causing people to work from home, people's working patterns become data, and that can be analyzed and potentially having work and tasks outsourced now that your work is being tracked digitally. And then wave 3 is called perception AI, and that is data that maybe didn't exist before, but we're now able to capture it. These are perceptual data captured that are analog in nature, usually not captured, but we can now capture it. So this could be speech data, could be capturing on microphones in open environments, or this environment could be a Zoom session. It could also be camera data for images and videos. And AI is already beating people in terms of image recognition and speech recognition. And this can be easily extended because we're limited on our senses. We only have 5 senses really, and 2 of them matter the most, that of vision and speech. But AI can have many, many senses. It can detect temperature, humidity. It can reconstruct 3D even in the dark. So AI will way exceed human in perception AI because of all these extra sensory capabilities that it has. Finally, wave 4 is a little more difficult for AI today, but rapid progress is being made. in terms of being able to move and manipulate. Of course, moving doesn't mean it has legs. It could be wheels. And manipulate doesn't have to be 5 fingers. It could be whatever construct that works. So once AI can move and manipulate, that's like our legs and feet and arms and fingers, then it can really do everything that we can do. So typical uses are autonomous vehicles, robotics, and so on. So these are 4 waves of AI that have been progressing in parallel, reinforcing each other and creating valuable companies. You've probably encountered each type of these AIs. For waves 1 and 2, you probably encountered it but just didn't know it. For waves 3 and 4, it's a lot more obvious, but it is really happening all around us. And because AI works better with more data, and in every domain, more and more data is being gathered, so it's not unexpected that it's coming to real world applications very soon. So for the next part of my talk, I'm going to move to what's next. So in my book, AI 2041, I talk about a number of new trends. So here I pick 6 of the many trends I predict as an extrapolation of what I've spoken about so far. I've talked so far about what AI can do to date. And now I'm going to talk about AI going forward up to 20 years. The first one is going to be understanding of language. And once you understand language, you can play a big role in businesses. And interestingly, computers were able to see first and then learn language later. Perhaps seeing is easier, just like babies learn to see first before they learn to understand and talk and listen. I think on the surface, computers, AI really began to see well in 2014. That was when AI beat human performance in an image recognition task. And that's on the top illustrated here. And the theory here is that when AI beats people on a fundamental task, that of seeing and recognizing, then applications should blossom. And indeed it has. So that has turned into a lot of applications, including some controversial ones like facial recognition, but also using recognition for autonomous stores, use recognition in factory visual inspection, the use of vision in various types of robots, and the use of computer vision in autonomous vehicles. Also, it can be used offline, not with live objects, but it can be used to do photo editing. Smart, you've probably noticed a lot of photo editing and video editing software improved. It's because of AI. In fact, when you use an Apple iPhone and do a portrait mode picture, it is in fact using computer vision. It's recognizing you and then cutting you out, putting in the foreground, blurring the background and painting it behind you. And that requires computer vision to do that accurately and naturally. And of course, it can be used to do bad things, like deep fakes are also based on computer vision technologies. So as an investor, which is my daytime job, we saw the 2014 breakthrough and we decided, hey, we're going to really make a bet on computer vision taking off with all these applications, and that has led to a lot of successful investments for us. But what has happened is that in 2020, history repeated itself as AI beat humans in terms of reading comprehension. And that's a pretty tough task. That is asking an AI algorithm to read any passage and then be asked any question and is able to give you an answer. That's a pretty tough task. And believe it or not, as of last year, AI has beaten human. So once that is done, that can become the basis for a much higher accuracy in speech recognition, machine translation, which are products that exist today, but they'll work so much better. They might be below acceptability threshold today, but they'll be above acceptability soon. And it can be used in question answering. You can ask all kinds of questions. In fact, Google already has pretty accurate question answering capabilities embedded in the search. I bet you probably just haven't asked it the question. So to understand the power of this natural language, try asking a full question to Google next time. It can also be used in targeted advertising. Imagine if today a typical commercial generates one single message to try to brand or sell your product. Maybe in different magazines, it would use different messages to cater to the audience, but always just in a few categories of main customer audience. But when you have this natural language ability, imagine if you can synthesize an answer. And once we have that, we can elevate ourselves from just having big data and to move towards a smart business intelligence. And these can be business processes and decision making that's powered by AI, assisting CEOs make really big decisions. So when you make a big decision, let's say at a knowledge or insight level, if you're in a question answering mode, you might ask the system, if Suez Canal is clogged for another 2 weeks, what stocks should I buy and sell from my portfolio? That's a question you would typically ask a analyst, but now AI can answer the question. And also, it might gain enough insight to directly push to you to say, hey, Kai-Fu, have you thought about investing in this kind of company because of that event? So it's even better than a search engine. It suggests to you and reminds you without you ever asking it anything. There's a lot of details here that I won't go into, but I've mentioned some key applications, and this is something one of the companies we invested in has built, that this foundational model can make a very accurate machine translation if you know what domain it's in. In the middle one, you see copywriting, the example I gave you about how to sell a Tesla to Kai-Fu or to anyone. In a targeted, individualistic market copywriting for that person, knowing what you know about that person. And then on the last part are more of a financial engine in which you can really understand what's happening around the world and ask questions and get up-to-minute updated answers. The example I gave about Suez Canal. So I think increasingly as this technology advances, there will be industrial applications as well as consumer applications that will essentially enable a conversational robot. It still might be text, it might be on your phone, it might be like a chat window, or it might be speech interface, or it might be a virtual digital human on your screen, or it might actually one day be a full robot. But whatever it is, because it's really gained some mastery of the human language, it's able to converse with us, have a dialogue with us. It feels like the dialogue is reasonable, and it helps us get our job done. We can ask it questions. So this will really elevate the capabilities of intelligence when AI starts to master language. I should also clarify that the fact that it appears to have a mastery of language doesn't mean that it fully understands. It's merely able to very intelligently map what you said against a gigantic repository of what it knows. It doesn't really understand language the way that we do, the way that we can have emotive responses and create connection between people and draw very vague analogies and truly understand every type of humor. It's not quite that, but for kind of business interactions or personal agent kinds of things, I imagine there would be very close to having very smart personal assistants that are perhaps like your secretary or your junior entry-level analyst in the work that you do, the people that could find answers for you and solve problems for you without extreme business complexity, that I imagine that AI will be able to do that in the 20-year time frame. The second key point I want to predict is in the transportation area. We all talk about a lot autonomous vehicles. So when will they come about? So my prediction is that L5 capability, that is fully autonomous, no steering wheels in the car, can go anywhere to anywhere. That capability of driving is probably about 20 years away. But that doesn't mean we have to wait that long to sit in an autonomous vehicle. In fact, we can sit in one right now. Lower left-hand side shows you a robo minibus. And that one is in deployment today on special routes. But next year, it will be in full deployment in 3 cities in China. And the key thing to recognize is, while to a human, driving a bus seems like a challenging task, maybe even more than driving a car because it's bigger. But to an AI, driving a bus is so much easier because buses drive on fixed routes, typically in large well-paved roads, and you can also choose cities that have decent weather. That it doesn't have to do with edge cases like a baby crawling across the street. What do? Is it a baby or is it a puppy? Can you tell? Well, because AI learns from data, and no autonomous vehicle has data with baby versus puppies crossing the road. So how is it ever going to learn that? So doing buses, and in fact, before that, doing highways is a very good way to collect data, gain practice, and then the data makes the system better, and so on. And also, the robo bus doesn't have to deal with very tiny roads, windy roads in the mountains. It doesn't have to deal with what happens if there's a natural disaster that causes a small road in the countryside to not be able to see the street signs, or maybe the pavement has been broken due to an earthquake. So what about all these cases? Well, if you're in big cities and you're operating in large paved roads, and you're driving fixed routes to maybe just 50 places, 50 fixed stops, then that is much easier. So the phase 1, maybe the next 10 years, will be increasingly more difficult environments in which autonomous vehicle is applied all the time, gaining data and improving itself and getting uploads. If you've seen some reports on the Tesla summoning feature, you would know that when Tesla first launched this feature, it's just the capability of having your parked car find you. It's very clever, but when they first launched it, didn't work out all that well. But as they accumulated more and more data, it began to work extremely well. So that shows how powerful that data collection and then the auto update that Tesla sent out to be very, very critical. So that's kind of phase 1, the next 10 years. And then after that 10 years, getting into work on robo-taxis, getting people comfortable with passing laws, ensuring the casualties are better than today, can take a long time. That's why I estimated maybe 20 years, maybe even longer. One thing that can make it faster is smart cities and smart highways. Imagine if the road starts communicating with the car that says, you're swerving off the road, be careful. Then the car can self-correct. Or maybe the road can say, the transmission on the road can tell the car, there's an accident up ahead. You can't see it, but slow down, be careful. So essentially, we're turning the current signs on the street from those telling people, human drivers, what's happening or what to do, to signals that tell the cars what's happening and what to do. And when you turn signals native in the car's language, it can, of course, appreciate it better than reading human signs. Furthermore, cars will be able to talk to each other. One car could say, oh, I just blew a tire, so be careful around me. That could be saving lives just by that broadcast. And one car can tell another, where I'm in a hurry, The person in my car needs to get to where he needs to get to in a hurry. Please get out of my way, 10 cents. And then the other car might say, no, I want $1. Then they negotiate, and then they give the right of way. So that could happen as well. And also, cars will be able to negotiate their exact path so that they barely miss each other by one centimeter. And humans won't be able to do that. So in 20 plus years, humans will slowly feel that we are unsafe to ourselves. The biggest danger to ourselves is not the autonomous vehicle, but our poor ability to drive. And then eventually people won't be allowed to drive on highways and perhaps all the roads. That will be beyond 20 years, but it's coming. Once we are able to deliver very capable autonomous vehicles, that can be the next operating system after Windows and Android, because you can use that same capability, the multi-sensor fusion, the AI deep learning capabilities, the real-time processing, integrating knowledge of everything in your environment, recognizing who's moving, what's moving. Those very capabilities that make autonomous vehicles work are the same things we need for robotics. So great robots will come after that as well. And we've all heard about using space travel to go up in space and then come down as a faster way to go from, say, London to Tokyo. The third area is a big one. It is probably the area that will make the biggest difference applying AI to healthcare. The reason is quite simple. It is the fact that healthcare is in the process of digitizing, and AI feeds on data, and healthcare is now digitizing everything. Healthcare records, radiology, pathology, data from our wearables, and data from multiomics, genetic sequencing and the like, blood tests. All of that are incredibly valuable data. That's basically the same as when I gave you the example of all the data about my income and house and so on whether I deserve a loan. This is data to determine whether you're ill or how to become healthier. So all this data collected for people longitudinally over years, if not decades, can be tremendous, not only in improving the quality of diagnosis and treatment. Imagine now individualized treatments. We're all used to everyone getting sick, getting the same treatment. And if a drug doesn't work, maybe we try another. Maybe there's a second defense. But now that we can collect all this data, we can determine maybe for some illnesses, different people with different history may be more efficaciously treated with different types of treatments. So this is called precision medicine, gives different treatment to people, really leveraging the big data and the individuality of treatment of healthcare. And beyond diagnosis and treatment, monitoring, long-term care, prevention are all great ways to use this data. And once this is done, we can see applications everywhere, from imaging, drug discovery, to many, many applications. I'll mention 4 quickly now. One is, I'll just start from the upper right, in pathology. People really are not the ideal species to do pathology because we can't see all the images very clearly. We can't integrate all the knowledge. We can't compare with all the people. And in fact, in certain types of diagnosis, AI is already beating humans, for example, in sicknesses related to the eye. And this will just continue and improve. A second area on the upper left is AI drug discovery. This is using, for example, DeepMind's protein folding to do the protein folding to begin with, followed by, for example, using AI to help find a target on which to attach a molecule, which is the drug, and then to discover which molecule is most likely to work. One of the companies we invested in, called In Silico Medicine, has actually used this approach with human supervision but AI discovery to discover drugs for 2 illnesses. One is pulmonary fibrosis, and the other is kidney fibrosis, both almost untreatable, now becoming treatable. And the most exciting thing is what AI is doing is not smarter than people. It's just helping to reduce the scope and the size and help make discovery faster, because it eliminates unlikely candidates and lets the human scientist hone in on the right drug faster. So the real outcome is that the human scientist's productivity increases and is able to perhaps discover a drug 3 to 4 times faster and maybe 10 times cheaper. And what this means is that currently pharmaceuticals are not willing to invest in drugs for rare diseases, because it could cost $2 billion for such a drug discovery. And because it's a rare disease, it won't pay for its R&D. But if we are able to reduce the cost by a factor of 10 by using AI tools to help the scientists, we can now go after rare diseases, and that will help us live healthily as well. On the lower left is autonomous robots. We all know about a company called Intuitive Surgical. It is currently still operated by a doctor remotely, and it does certain types of surgery. In the future, as robotics become finer and finer motor skills and accuracy and autonomy, it will gradually move from human operated to human delegate to parts of it to let AI operate. As an example, you might argue the surgery itself is too important. The surgeon should do that. But what about suturing, right? Sewing the patient up, that is almost like a sewing machine. Probably the robot can do a better job. So why not delegate parts of the surgery to robots? And then that will reduce the stress and workload on the surgeon, allowing the surgeon to treat more patients. That's a great thing. And then eventually, some surgeries will be potentially performed fully by robots under surgeons' care and direction. And that probably is around the 20-year time frame, assuming the various laws support that. So these are some of the exciting ideas. One of the more recent ideas I want to briefly mention is, can AI help us live longer and healthier? And I'm personally using a technology that is in a company we invest in called Deep Longevity, that takes, in fact, all of our data, multi-omics, blood, and radiology data, to identify the attributes of aging and tell us what we should do to slow down the aging, or in some cases even reverse the aging effect. And the advice it gives can be related to your diet, it might be related to exercise or sleep, or it might be introducing some medicine and nutrients. And of course, this is all supervised by a doctor who will tweak the recommendations. And I've been on this regimen for about a year, and I am watching my blood become healthier and healthier. In fact, it's about 6 years healthier than it was 1 year ago. So by some metric, I might be 5 years younger now. The fourth area is in robotics. I believe the advances in robotics are happening, and in China is in particular driving it, because China is the world's factory and has a strong incentive to lower the costs of producing goods, because Chinese labor costs are going up compared to countries like India, Vietnam, and Brazil. So in the area of autonomous transport, moving things, we are seeing forklifts to be the lowest hanging fruit, followed by moving things outside, followed by trucks, followed by buses, followed by cars, all along collecting more data, enabling the next more difficult scenario. We've kind of covered that under transportation. But in industrial, it's something similar. We want to go after the low-hanging fruits. And in a factory, the human capability being used from simplest to hardest are using our eyes for visual inspection. Is the t-shirt proper size or not, proper color or not? Then moving things around, kind of like forklifts, but also in this example, you see a watering robot in a farm. The third case is a picker, something that can pick merchandise up. Imagine using it in Amazon's warehouse. And then the fourth example is a fancy finger that can actually pick up very delicate objects, in this case, an egg yolk. And that could be applied to more cases of picking. And then the last case is autonomous flying with a drone. So all of these are enabling cases that will potentially make manufacturing, the production process much more efficient, replacing parts or all of human labor. And this will be further advanced as robots become self-replicating, self-maintaining, as 3D printing starts to take off, and also manufacturing can be extended to homes to be built in modules, can be extended to energy in terms of making battery and solar panels, can be extended to materials as new ways of producing goods that are constructed by scientists one molecule at a time. So number 5 is going into the energy and agricultural space, that they become manufacturing driven. So first on energy, one of the biggest breakthroughs in the last 10 years is that the cost of solar and lithium battery have been reduced by over 80%. And they will be reduced by another 80% or so in the next 10 years. And if we're looking 20 years, they might be reduced by 90% to be 1/10 of what it is today. That by then, these will be indisputably the lowest cost energy source for the world. And they can be enhanced by wind energy, potentially hydrogen, and certainly there's electrical grid to back them up. One of the interesting ways and problematic ways of using this type of new energy, while it is clean, is that the solar panels can collect energy from the sun when it's during the day, and then that energy is used but also stored in a battery which can be used at night. And hopefully the storage is good enough for use in 365 days a year. But there are many problems. One, of course, is what if the battery isn't enough? Well, then we have to back up to the current electrical grid. The other issue is this energy cannot be arbitrarily transported from one house to another, or one city, certainly not from one city to another. So they have to be used on the spot or near the spot that you collect. So they'll be distributed. So we imagine the right solution for the human race is over the next 10 to 20 years, really place a lot of these distributed combination of solar energy and improved batteries. They might not be based on lithium anymore. There will be new types of batteries by then, and material improvements are coming. So if this distributed storage, it could cost trillions of dollars globally to build this out, but if this were built out, we would enjoy energy at something like 1/10 the cost of today. They will be basically clean. They can be used for all kinds of tasks, because once you have almost free energy, you have almost free water, because you can do desalination as a manufacturing process. And the exciting thing for all of us is that this turns the energy problem from a natural resource problem into a manufacturing problem. We're no longer relying on certain countries that have oil or other natural resources, the haves and have-nots problem. Every country can either manufacture or buy equipment manufactured by other countries to produce for its energy at a fraction of the cost. So this is quite an exciting revolution. It's not exactly AI, but AI can and will be used in the storage, transport of the energy, can be used in designing the energy consumption to minimize it. It can be used in the design of the new material. So there's AI in places, but largely this is an energy revolution. And manufacturing isn't just going to be useful to produce the new energy source, but it can be used for in agriculture, in the future of vertical farming, and also in 3D printed food. We can now grow meat from stem cells, so we can actually grow a piece of beef without ever hurting the animal. And also in the future we can have new kinds of meat and vegetables that we've never had through the technology of synthetic biology. So this is again turning production of food into one from agriculture, which depends partly on the weather, but into one that's manufacturing, making it predictable and also lower cost through quantity production. The last point I want to talk about is to further go into the materials revolution. We've already kind of covered the advances in synthetic biology. The biggest advance there is CRISPR, and CRISPR is a way to do gene editing. And gene editing allows us to potentially make new types of organisms, and it can be used, for example, to turn a worm into a fertilizing worm by editing its gene. And we've already talked about how we can grow meat on a petri dish, and we can use it for drug and therapy discovery, and we can actually use this synthetic biology to create many more materials: rubber, cosmetics, fragrances, fashion, fabrics, not from chemicals, but built one molecule at a time. So this will be good for the planet, and it essentially also turns more things into a manufacturing problem and a manufacturing opportunity. So if we combine these three things together, we are looking forward to an age of plenitude. This is probably not 20 years, it might be 40 or something like that, but as the cost of energy plummets, the cost of materials drop, and the cost of production also goes to a very low number, from using people labor to using autonomous robots. This will move us closer to what I call plenitude, which means we have enough, because the cost of goods will have dropped enough that we should be able to come close to eradicate hunger and poverty, providing decent living for all of the human race. And that's something the human race has been trying to do for millennia. And finally, I think we can see we're close to it. AI plays a role, but other technologies also play a role. Of course, this assumes there's well intention by the people, that companies don't get greedy and they actually try to make this lower cost goods available to all. So there are many more predictions in my book, AI 2041. I won't go into these. I will close on a few points that people might wonder about. So I think AI will be able to, while AI cannot have the human reasoning abstraction capability, AI will be able to simulate it, because the natural language applications naturally, we will have AI that exhibits intelligence, exhibits some degree of analysis, abstraction, even creativity, but it won't be a full superset of humans. We see that AI and humans are symbiotic. We'll use AI to help us with tools, I believe that we'll also see immersive environments with AR and VR definitely working in 20 years, probably beginning to work in 5 to 10 years, with non-intrusive small devices like the glasses, which you can put on and see a combination of what's real and what's synthetic. Quantum computing should begin to work, and that will further revolutionize these AI capabilities and algorithms. I don't think we will be at Singularity or AGI, artificial general intelligence, or super intelligence in 20 years, not because I don't think AI will advance. I do believe AI will grow a lot. If we are this circle over here, and then AI is this circle with some intersection, the AI circle will hugely grow over the next 20 years, but it won't be a full superset of the human capabilities. And it's also my hope that humans will grow because we learn to use AI better and because we improve on our fundamental capabilities in the process. The reason I don't think we can fully get there is there are still too many open scientific problems. We don't know how our brain works. We don't know why we have emotion and self-awareness. We don't know where our creativity comes from. And if we need to deliberately program these, we also don't know how because AI currently operates on data. So it sure looks like a couple of very big breakthroughs are needed. And it's hard to predict breakthroughs, but in the past 60 years of AI, there's only been one big breakthrough. To suggest there would be multiple 5 or 10 new ones in the next 20 years just seems aggressive to me. And there are many issues about the dangers of AI. We don't have a lot of time to cover this in detail. Concerns about AI's personal data being lost, concerns about security, concerns about fairness, and my general belief is that we do need regulations to prevent very egregious behavior, and they need to be there needs to be deterrent, and bad people who do these bad things when they're caught should be severely punished. That needs to be in place. But I also believe we need to let technologists figure out a way to solve these technology-induced problems. Just like when electricity first came out, it was dangerous. People could get electrocuted, but then we came up with circuit breakers. Just like when internets were first connected to PCs, we got viruses on our PCs, but then we invented antivirus software. There are beginnings of ideas, some of which illustrated here, that are looking like technology solutions might be able to harness the problems created by AI. I'll just give one example. People are very concerned about protection of personal information. Yet, if we don't pool people's information together, we can't really train AI. That is until the idea of federated learning was discovered. It's in an area called privacy computing. The idea of federated learning is, imagine we're all want to be careful about our health data. We don't want everybody to have it, but our hospital already has it. So suppose we create a system, and this is what my hospital, this is your hospital, this is someone else's hospital, and our data resides in the hospital where AI is trained from them, and then all these AI trained in each hospital are pulled together. Then this guy never saw any of our data. So if this can be proven to work, then we will be able to have our cake and eat it too, protect our privacy, personal data, and still benefit from the power of AI. So it is my hope that technologists will see a call to action and solve many of these problems caused by technology so that we can enjoy the technologies without the externalities. So that is the end of my talk, and thank you.
Dr. Lee, thank you once again for investing your time recording your keynote for the Swiss Cognitive Global AI community about how AI will transform our world. Great insights that we were certainly more than happy to share today with our community. Thank you for being here with us in this forum. We hope to meet you soon again in person, maybe already in January at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, dear audience, let me wrap up our event. We have seen that what a great impact AI will have on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and how investments in AI have boomed in the last 9 years. We also learned that AI is not just for data scientists. We also need a business leadership that is data aware. The importance of improvements in NLP, as well as the acceleration achieved in science through the use of AI, was also highlighted. A strong case was also made for investments in open source technology and data. Some of the challenges that were highlighted include the fundamental imbalance in the supply and demand that underpins the AI economy, as well as the dark side of the increasing dependency of computers. The ethical questions through the whole AI development process were also highlighted. Each questions need to be analyzed and addressed to achieve ethical AI. The topic of AI ethics is also important because AI is a mirror of the quality of human values and invites us to a new level of maturity. Finally, we learned the importance of taking a chance of young generation and how this can improve innovation. And now, to your dear audience, it was my pleasure to have you with us today. Great interaction and questions on the chat. Keep them going on and keep continuing the discussion on social media. We want to hear from you, maybe even on stage. Let us know what you have to share with your peers globally. Check out the upcoming events on our website. The registration is not yet open, but we will keep you posted in January. Until then, in a few days, you will receive our event wrap-up, including Dr. Kaifuli's video recording and all the handouts. So keep tuned. And now, on behalf of the Swiss Cognitive team and my co-founder, Andy, I thank you for your time and curiosity for being here today and actively participating in today's event. We are, again, at a time of the year when we can slow down, take some time to reflect, make adjustments to what we've been doing, or even redirect completely from our original plans. Use this time to whatever you need to, but most of all, to recharge your batteries and to be with your loved ones. This is definitely what we are going to do. Enjoy this beautiful time of the year and cherish every moment of it. We're wishing you and your loved ones a heartwarming festive season with lots of laughter, love, and most of all, health. Take care, and I'm inviting my team to say hello to you. This is us, and we wish you Merry Christmas, festive seasons, and a Happy New Year, and see you all in 2022 and beyond.
See you. Bye.